In this video, I'm going to show you how I made these dual-sided tiles that have a simple locking system that were inspired by the new Wizkids line of Warlock Tiles and one of the videos from Wyloch's Armory. I'm going to show you how to do it for a couple bucks using chipboard and foam core. Let's get started. Alright, to get started, the supplies you're going to need are a ruler, ballpoint pen, cutter of some kind, a knife, your chipboard and foam core, and the magic Mod Podge with black paint mix to seal the foam and protect it for painting, and your various colors of paint that you want to use for whatever colors you want to make your tiles. Now, the foam board I use is from the Dollar Tree, and it comes in large sheets, and the paper peels off much easier than regular foam board from other art stores. And you don't need that much. I made roughly 26 of the 2x2 tiles, and I made 4 of the 4x4 tiles, and I still have this much left out of one sheet. I can still make a lot more tiles out of it. You can make any size you want, obviously. The 2x2 work really well for your hallways, and some 4x4s if you want to have a bigger room right away as opposed to putting together all the pieces. So the first thing you do is you cut out for each tile it's going to require 2 pieces, one for the stone side, one for the wood side, and whatever size you're going to use. And then what you're going to do is you're going to cut a square of chipboard that matches the tile. And that's what I did here. And then what I did was for the slots, because what this does is this is going to put a spacer in between the two. And that is the space in which you plug your little connectors with. So, now I went with a 1/2 inch on mine. And then usually, once you cut one, you can just trace it as opposed to doing all the measuring all over again. But to get started, peel off the paper off both sides, just like this. It comes off very, very easy. Then what I did was put it on here, and then at the 1 inch mark, made a mark. And I did this for all 4 sides. Just like this. And I took the ruler, placed it on those lines, and I took the cutting knife and I just scored a cut. I didn't cut all the way through, just scored it like that. Turn it that way, put it on the lines, and then just scored it through. Then I take that same pen and I drag it through that score, and that will give you your definition right in here. Then what you can do is you can also use the famous tinfoil ball rolling technique, although I can't seem to find my tinfoil. There it is. Tinfoil rolling technique to give it some texture. Like this. Then you can also draw some cracks in the tiles. Again, kind of digging into the foam with the pen. You can use a pencil or any type of semi-sharp rounded object, and that will give you texture. Then for the wood side, same process. Take this off. I didn't use a ruler because usually boards are not going to be always exact. So I just took and I scored through and made little boards like this. Then, once again, ran the pen through it. deepen the lines. Then ran it this way to show the different parts where the two boards come together, and then just poked holes on each side of the line to create the nail holes. Just like that. Then make sure I fitted this. Now if there's any excess, sometimes there's some excesses on the edges, and I would just, once it's glued together, I would just cut it off. So we fit that to there. And it's a simple matter of hot glue, like that, lining it up, pressing it down. Then we just take the other one, match it up. And I always put the hot glue on the cardboard because the hot glue can melt the foam if you put it directly on there. So putting it on the cardboard first helps alleviate that problem. Line it up like that, pressing it down. Try to make sure you don't get any hot glue in where these little separations are, because then it'll block your tabs. Now putting these two together gives you the room to insert these tabs, and if they fit a little tight, that's even better. You could maybe even get thicker chipboard than what you put in here, slightly thicker if you want them to really be snug to hold everything together. So then the next step is to take your Mod Podge and black paint and just use off the lid here a little bit. And I like to get down in these cracks first. Make sure it gets all in there, and of course inside the detail. Now you can use as many coats as you like, but the more coats you put on, the more detail you're going to lose as it gets filled in with the paint. So kind of what I do is I paint the edges too. I paint one side and then I let it dry, and then I paint the other side. That way nothing sticks to the mat. So that's pretty much how that goes. Now I'm going to let this dry. I'll paint the other side, and then I'll come back and show you the finished paint job for the tiles themselves. And then I'll come back and show you the finished paint job for the tiles themselves. Okay, the paint is dry, or I should say the protective coating is dry. Now what I used for the stone side, I just used some graphite. This ends up being a really dark gray, and then a lighter gray. And so what I did with that. Now I don't paint. This is because I didn't want to use a wash, but you can also use a wash, either a professional one or one of the many recipes online for doing a wash to fill in all the cracks to bring out the detail. But since there's already black in these lines, what I did was I brushed, not dry brushing, but I did a cross so it wouldn't necessarily go in to the detail. And I did that on both sides. Try not to get too much paint on the brush. Enough to cover it, but not enough to, so you kind of fill in the crack there, but that's okay. And I went this way, like that. So that kind of didn't fill these cracks in, and really not these, so you can still see all your details there. And then, of course, painted the edge for that. Now let that dry for a bit. Okay, so this is dry now. And what I do is I take some regular gray or lighter gray, and you can use whatever you want. And this is where I actually kind of do a dry brushing. So I come along here and I just kind of flick it across the stones kind of give them a little bit more texture, just to give a little bit more of color. What you can also do, which I forgot to mention when we were putting this together, you can take your pen and run it along the sides here to kind of round the edges, so when you put the tiles together, they give the same effect when you put two together. So you have a little bit of a gap in there, like that. You can still see the edge. Now, that actually probably is already pretty much dry, so we will start on the other side. Now you can do more for the coloring of this side if you like and put a wash, but this is all I really needed. Then for the wood side, pretty much the same process. I go across the boards like this to maintain those deep lines. And also when you're painting this side with the black, the Mod Podge mix, make sure you get down deep in these nail holes, otherwise it'll look white. So make sure I hit those really good, and when I do go with the lines, I stay out of them. And then paint the edges as well. Just like that. Alright, now we'll let that dry and continue with the detailing. Okay, that's dry. And then taking a lighter brown, and this is burnt sienna. Seems to be a favorite amongst us crafters. And again, I kind of do a little bit of a dry brush on this one. We're just kind of hitting it a little bit here and there. Just maybe not even all the boards, just enough to break up the color a little bit. And again, you can do all the detailing any way you want. This is just kind of what I chose. You can even go with a little bit lighter on it to make it even more weathered, especially if it's outdoors. If you wanted to use these as a dock for a sea city or something, you could make it more gray, the way wood turns when it's exposed to the, especially near the ocean. So then you have your wood, just like that. You can even just go down each board if you like. You can lighten it up just a hair. Alright, so that's pretty much for these tiles. Now, the Warlock tiles come with interior walls that you can use. And those are designed so if you want to separate, say, this from there, you can. So I made these using some more foam core and just a chipboard base that I painted. And that way I can just I can place that there and make it a wall. Or you can also, the Warlock tiles come with side walls, so you could use the same thing, just tuck it into there to create a little wall if you like. And another way you can do it too is when you make these walls, all I did was the same thing as I peel off both of these like this, took my ballpoint and just ran down like that, 2 lines, and then kind of drew in the bricks like so, and then alternated the bricklaying work or the stone work like this. That's simple. I did basically that on both sides. Did the same Mod Podge black paint coating, Same brush across with dark gray and then the lighter gray to create these. And the other way you can do it too, now I did it because the Warlock tiles, they're thinner walls and they have bits of metal embedded in them that look like this. And the idea is, in between the tiles, if you want a wall, you put it in between like this. And then that creates your wall. The reason I did these with this base is if I'm using the 4x4 tile and I want a wall in the middle of it, I don't want to shove anything between what I already got, so these can be used for the same thing. So that essentially is how I make these. Also, when you're done painting, I gave it a coat of the Minwax spray polymer on top to help protect it even more, protect the paint. Let them dry fully. They're kind of sticky after the first day or so. But that's it. That's essentially how I made these. If you have any questions, and that's pretty much it. Two-sided tiles for a couple of bucks. Now I made a bunch. I made, like I said, 4 of these, 4 of the 4x4s, and about 26-ish of the 2x2s. You can make any size you want, but the ones I made ended up being able to fit in this little case right here, and it gives me everything I need. And then I just cut a bunch of the chipboard connectors to use, so I have plenty, especially if I want to add on. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments below. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and then also subscribe to my channel if you enjoy what I've been doing. Give me some suggestions as well of things that you'd like me to see me craft, and I will do my best to try to fulfill those. Alright, well, thank you very much for watching, and may all your rolls be natural 20s.